feel like the Easter Bunny left me something. Oh? What is this? Oh. Oh, that can't be a good sign. Happy Easter to everyone except who made this fucking movie. And me, I guess, because I watched it. This movie is Easter Bunny Massacre, a horror movie that is not good bad. It sucks. I actually kind of hate it. I have tried like on 2 or 3 separate occasions just to record this video, and I hate this movie so much that I just did not want to bother. It's so bad. Anyway, my name is Dorian. I use he, him pronouns for the most part. I really love horror media, and media in general, which has been a really complicated history for me. But today, we're gonna celebrate Easter with a bad horror movie, apparently. Why I did this to myself for my first video? Who knows? To start, this is the case for this piece of shit. I don't want to try and get closer than that because my camera's far away for right now. It's actually zoomed into where it is now. And the mask on the front is literally the cheapest thing you could possibly imagine. Which is good for this type of movie, but is very misleading because this is not what the mask actually looks like in the final film. Which is shown on the back. Because people don't seem to know how to make cases anymore. Also, if you see me look off, I'm reading my script notes, whatever you want to call these. I tried reading it off of my notebook. Did not work because it was like comprehensible for me, but to read them and re-summarize the movie with them did not work. Not in the slightest. Also, for a movie that is not very good, 12 pages of notes. When something else I tried doing one time was like maybe 6 pages. So this is double that. To start with, you play the disc in whatever mode you choose to watch it, whether it's a gaming console, your computer, whatever. And literally the only thing on the menu screen is play movie and trailer for this movie. Nothing else. There's no scene selection, so if something happens to what you're watching it on or you have to eject the disc, you're just gonna have to search through the movie to get back to your place, and you're probably gonna have to rewatch a tiny bit of it. It is not fun. But I said, fuck it. Maybe it won't be that bad. Maybe they're just doing real bare bones. Maybe they didn't have enough for special features, even though I feel like they could have at least done subtitles with this movie. Also, hello, yes, meet my STEM toy plush thing, Tatooine. He has the little sequins on his back that is very fun for stimming. So if you see me playing with him, don't think twice about it. You might see him a lot. You start the movie, and the movie opens with the most mediocre cinematography I've seen. Like, it's not bad, but it's not great. It is just very middling. There's a couple shots in parts of the movie that's, like, really nice, but as a whole, it's just very mediocre. Also, the aspect ratio for a movie that came out in 2020 is terrible. You know how with older movies, they have to adapt their DVDs and the screens and stuff to fit new DVDs and TVs because, you know, aspect ratio changed. Well, and when they do that, the aspect ratio and the way the film looks just looks crunched and kind of morphed slightly in a not good way. This movie does that for a movie that came out in 2021. They literally should not have had this issue that a lot of older movies did. I don't know what happened. I'm too scared to ask. The instant people start talking, it gets worse. Literally, because I think it might have been filmed in New Zealand or something like that based off of the accents, but the accents were so thick, and whoever audio mixed the movie was so bad at their job, I could not hear anything. It was so inaudible, it was pissing me off. Literally, my movies or TV or whatever I'm watching or playing will be at like 12-ish, usually in like 10, because of how I process audio and because I get anxious about my roommates getting too annoyed by loud noises. I literally had to have this movie up to 23 because I could not fucking hear anything. And even then, there was one character I still could not hear throughout most of the movie. It is literally that bad of audio mixing. But besides the cinematography, the movie opens, you see a bunch of, I guess, 18-year-olds or maybe a tiny bit younger depending on when they started school or when their birthday is, partying because they just graduated from high school in their country. And you end up seeing two dude bros chest bump and drink alcohol while you see the third dude just sitting at a fire, staring at it grumpily. Also, even though I ended up learning everyone's names over time and I was starting to call them by their names, he was the only one that when I even learned his name, I didn't care. I just kept calling him either Grumpy Guy or Skeet Ulrich because he looks like a weird New Zealand version of Skeet Ulrich. So, if you don't like me not calling him by his character name, oh well, he's Skeet Ulrich or Grumpy Guy. The people in the group total are 4 women and 3 men. The women, except for one of them, who is the shadiest person in the group, in her own way, start slut-shaming her and just talking shit about her for a while, which felt really weird, like, in general, especially for a movie in 2021. Like, I feel like we should be past that by now. And especially with all the things they reveal about her later on, I feel like they could have gone a different route than just slut-shaming her. Like, you have so many options on why she sucks. You don't have to go that route. The girl they've been talking shit about, her name is Heather, and she finally makes her appearance wearing a really weird bunny mask that, like I said, isn't even the same one from the cover. It's actually one that looks a lot better for the type of movie that they're going for, and actually kind of looks like something I would have worn at a haunted house I used to work at. Like, it was actually, like, it wasn't great, but we didn't have great costumes half the time, so for what they were going for, it was actually kind of cool. Her reasoning for bringing it, however, makes absolutely no sense. It's kind of sad, though, that her mask seems way safer than my bunny mask when I worked at a haunted house. My bunny mask was a nightmare. Like, I could have probably accidentally asphyxiated myself with mine. She's also wearing, like, a disgustingly leopard print dress with spaghetti straps that really feels like something that would have come out in, like, the late 90s or early 2000s. And I tend to not judge what people wear. I tend to wear weird stuff. It just feels like a really strange choice of clothing for an in-context an in-context, like, 18-year-old in 2021. Or probably 2020 because of when it was probably filmed. Either way, it felt like a weird stylistic choice for her. But basically, the instant Heather shows up, she is instantly very shady and kind of unsettling with everything that she says and the way she interacts with everyone. And you can kind of tell that even though they're supposed to all be friends and they act like friends towards each other, she seems to have a bad history with every single person in the group, which I guess kind of makes sense. I have had friend groups where there's that one person everyone hates, but I feel like, kind of like me, you kind of just kick that person out of your life because you don't need them if they're shitty. But they party for a bit, and she eventually goes up to this one jock-looking guy whose name is Tom, and cryptically says, let me look at my notes, "We know why you won't get with Harley," and it just sounds like a really weird, vaguely threatening comment because he instantly gets defensive and tries to shut her up like she knows a secret. And literally everyone's secret we find out, except for one of them for some reason. Like, I still don't know what secret the last person had. Or sorry, he was the first person to die, but we'll get there. She also just takes Tom's beer out of his hand and drinks it and then walks off with it. Like, that's just so rude. That was his drink. He didn't even seem done with it. If you had enough that you could walk off with it, that's just rude. But Bizarro Ski Ulrich eventually asks her what the bunny mask is for, and she just kind of says that Easter is underappreciated and that it's Easter that day, which... cool. Still doesn't explain a bunny mask that is very obviously creepy to everyone else. This is also the point in the movie where I started getting really annoyed at the audio mixing because, again, I had the movie up at 23, and the one character whose name is Amy, I literally still could not hear half of what she was saying throughout, like, 80% of the movie. Because whoever did her audio just sucked and probably needed to get fired because they did not know what they were doing. And also because her accent is so thick that they almost, like, put her into ways so that you can't tell what she's saying, even though she's a very titular character in this movie. Eventually, they all gather around the fire, which I feel like this is a standard campground, but it's been so long since I've been to any campground that it felt really strange that there was just an already pre-made fire pit and this giant, very sturdy looking bench that they were able to sit on that there was no way they could have brought it with them. And I'm sure there's probably a campground that has stuff like that. It just felt kind of strange to me for some reason. But as they gather around the fire, she makes a toast to their graduation and that they won't have to deal with school anymore and they can do whatever they want. And that basically they're all adults now and that they're all gonna do well in university. Most of them anyway. Dun dun dun! After she says this though, either Tom or Neil, which is a different guy with the group, gets really offended that she says this and feels like she said it for a specific reason, but she doesn't. She's just like, oh, you know, 'cause Zara's going to Scotland, and we all know how schools in Scotland are, I guess. It's weird. Also, I don't care which one of them were acting grumpy about it, 'cause I hate this movie. I don't care enough. To continue her cryptid speech, she says, and I made sure to write as good of quotes as I could, if I can find it in my notes, to the most loyal and honest friend groups. And then which she says that very cryptically, by the way. And she then holds up a baggie of pills. And as someone who prefers wacky tobacco over other substances, it literally just looked like Mentos to me. Though they end up zooming in on it a little later and I can tell they aren't actually Mentos, but they still don't look like pills. I don't know what they were. And now it's time for the party montage. You know, the montage we all need in movies like this, where you see a blurry, drunk, high-fueled party for everyone that is slightly blurred so that you can tell that they're intoxicated. And I also couldn't tell which one of it was, but like during some of the montage, you see one of the guys just weirdly dancing with the mask on until it cuts to no one wearing the mask and it's just on the grass leaned against one of the tents. And it's just staring ominously at the group. Even though it is shown to be throughout the entire movie just an inanimate object, so it's probably them trying to be creepy and set up horror movie vibes, but it just seemed funny to me. Eventually the party winds down and we see that Heather is the only one awake. I need some water. And we see someone's hand in a very heavy-duty work glove just stalking her, it looks like, and picks up the bunny mask. And then all of a sudden, Heather is confronted by the person who I call either Easter Bunny or Bunny Man throughout the entire thing, because I could not make my mind on what to call it, and I would forget what I already called it. But basically, the Easter Bunny holds up this pair of old janky scissors, which I don't even know why they would have brought with them in the first place, and threatens to unalive her. And she just says, "Fuck you, you wouldn't dare." And then, yeah, he proceeds to unalive her, because it's a horror movie. Right before Easter Bunny does this, she also implies that she thinks it's Tom under the mask to create one of the red herrings, which, with what happens in the next scene, is kind of pointless. And she also threatens to out his secret she knows, but obviously she dies, so it doesn't matter. But the grumpy guy wakes up in his tent the next morning and he hears someone scream and realizes he has blood all over him for some reason to set up more of a red herring. And he leaves the tent because of the scream from one of the ladies. And once he walks out of his tent, what does he see? He sees the dead Heather covered in blood with the scissors next to her. We then see that everybody is covered in blood, but for some reason nobody remembers what happened that night because they were all intoxicated with alcohol, pills, and wacky tobacco. When seeing what happened, Grumpy Ulrich basically just looks at everyone and is basically doing the whole, maybe we all did it, and Neil gets very angry and tries to pin the blame on Heather, saying that she would love it if he had gone to jail for her death. Like she would have faked her death for that reason or something, which at the time I thought was a really weird comment to make and very irrational, but at the same time, having seen the rest of the movie now, I kind of don't blame him for thinking that. Literally, I wrote down his entire, like, the tidbit of his quote that I thought was funny about that of, "I won't go down for that bitch. God, she would love that." He's just the best actor. He just keeps ranting for a while, how he doesn't want to go to jail, and it's gonna ruin all their lives, and Grumpy Ulrich tries to reason with them, but it doesn't work, so Neil eventually just goes, "Are you with Heather or are you with us?" Which he's basically threatening to kill him as well if he doesn't keep the secret, which is great. Of course, Skeet Ulrich agrees and starts cleaning up the mess with everybody, and Neil ends up mentioning that they need to take the scissors with them, which I thought at the time that meant, like, taking the scissors home with them to hide better or something. But the scissors literally never come back into the plot, so I'm assuming they ditched it in the woods somewhere. Also, while they're cleaning stuff, it just pans to Heather on the ground, and for some reason the bunny mask is, like, propped up on her arm, like its mouth on her arm? Like it's nomming on her arm, even though it's just an empty mask? But eventually they have a makeshift memorial for her. They make it seem like they buried her, but we find out later they actually, like, ditched her in a river, so the memorial was more ceremonial than anything else. Because there's, like, rocks, like it's the mound of dirt after you bury someone, and they put a makeshift wood cross over it, and you see Amy, like, put colored bits of twine on it for some reason. I felt like it had some significance to it, but for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what the significance was. They also rant a lot about the plot, and I don't care. And then we cut to 1 year later. This is part of where I started to notice they had no budget for this movie, which I wouldn't be able to confirm because when I tried looking up this movie, there was basically no info I could find, really. But as it shows a car driving up, the license plate is blurred. Grumpy guy gets out of his car, and before he walks into the building, he has a note that I realized after a few minutes, that it was a note printed, cut out, and then glued to the back of one of those, like, holiday banners where each individual letter has its own little cardboard cutout thing. And so, like, his was on one specific letter, which I thought was actually kind of interesting to do. Like, it was pretty creative compared to the other stuff in this movie. Also, the building that he drives to really confuses me. I assumed it was like a rental bed and breakfast type of thing, because it's not a hotel because of the type of building it is and where it is. But when we see the interior throughout the movie, the doors are made like it's a hotel. But it's like an average bed and breakfast building. Do bed and breakfasts in Europe do that? Like, that just seemed really strange. But anyway, the note basically, as I made sure to pause it and write down what it says, and I think I can probably insert a picture of the note too somewhere here. But the note basically says, "You are invited to an Easter celebration and reunion. I can't wait for the whole gang to be back together. See you there, Heather." Which, ominous. But as he walks in, we are panned a little farther away out of his frame of sight, and we see just the hand of someone wearing, again, the heavy-duty work glove and holding a hammer. But once we're inside, we, and him for the first time, see that the entire house, or whatever the building is decorated for Easter, and we see the first person to be there, Heather! No, Amy! But we basically find out during their conversation while they're catching up that after Heather had died, her and Grumpy Guy became really distant, but we don't know why, and so they basically broke up. And then we also find out that Zara, one of the other women in the group, unalived herself. Oh no. We also find out, besides Zara, for obvious reasons, that everyone got the same note in the same way on all those Easter letters. And this was the point in the movie where I started to realize, oh no, this is just a worse version of I Know What You Did Last Summer, huh? But they leave the room that they're in and go to be with the rest of the group, who apparently were also there, and we never heard them speaking, or it was never mentioned that they had already arrived, which was odd, just because of the sequence of events and the way they were talking. But everyone is there, except for Zara, of course, and Neil brought his new girlfriend, and Amy apparently brought her brother, because apparently their mom died, and she didn't want him to be alone. Now that everyone is together, they're all debating, because that's half of what this movie is just them bickering amongst each other and debating the plot of the movie, about who could have sent the invites. And Marty, Amy's brother, gets really mad that no one's answering his questions, because he's very confused why everyone is there cryptically and why everyone keeps talking about something without answering his straightforward questions. So he gets very grumpy and kind of yells at everyone. Everyone gets mad at him because he lashes out, even though he did it because everyone was ignoring him, which feels pretty valid for what's happening. But because of that, Amy talks to him and convinces him to go inside and deal with their belongings, to, like, put it in their rooms and unpack. And he agrees and fucks off. We find out that Neil is still a dick, and they keep talking in the same constant circles over and over again before they all agree to go inside and deal with their stuff. As they go inside, the brunette named Jane, who is the main person to be constantly slut-shaming Heather, notices that there is a locked door, and instead of getting unsettled by it, she realizes it's locked and then just kind of goes, huh, oh well, and goes upstairs to deal with her stuff. Because that's what people should be doing in a creepy setting like this. I almost forgot about this. As she's walking upstairs, and right as she's leaving the frame, in the back of a different part of the frame, we just see Easter Bunny walk from one end into the other. It was the goofiest looking edit. But we pan back to Amy and Marty in his room talking, and she basically just talks to him about why he got angry at everyone, and he rather understandingly says that he doesn't like being ignored, which, Fair. And all she says is basically, you gotta control yourself. Okay. As she's leaving his room, she finds the creepy bunny mask, which he apparently found and didn't know what it was, so he just kind of left it. And she recognizes it, kind of, but not really, so she just puts it down, mentions how creepy it is, and walks out. We now pan to Neil and his girlfriend in their room, and they're talking amongst themselves, and she's pulling out her clothes to put away, and I swear to God, a dress that she pulls out and actually wears in a slightly later scene literally just looks like a disco type of dress. It is hideous in a bad way. But she basically asks him why he was so aggressive downstairs, and he just says how he was frustrated and mad because he knows someone in the group is setting all of this up, but he just doesn't know who. So they talk about Heather, who she thinks has only been missing, and he accidentally slips that she's dead, but then when she's like, what do you mean she's dead? He backpedals very quickly and is like, she's been missing for a year now. I mean, of course she's probably dead. Smooth. And now for some reason we get another red herring of the girlfriend, because we find out that she had actually gone to after school theater club with Heather when they were in school. And they apparently had also gone with Zara when she was alive and they were all in school. Which, okay. And now it's flashback time of what Neil thinks he remembers from that night, which basically not really anything. And it is just him dancing really weird with someone else. I think Jane. And I thought how they were dancing was really strange, but they were also very intoxicated, so I'm kind of not that surprised, considering how some of my friends act when they're intoxicated. But he eventually just stops dancing and goes over to Heather, who's smoking on the bench with, I think, Tom next to her, and I think Zara on the other side of her. And he does the international sign of, come in closer so I can whisper something to you. And then when she's the tiniest bit closer, he just asks her something out loud, so I don't know why he was acting like he was gonna whisper something. But he basically asks why she said something in part of her speech, which she very obviously is like, I said a lot of things, you're gonna have to specify. And it was something about not all of them succeeding in school, I guess. And then they bicker, and it implies that she knows a secret about Neil as well, which, now that I think about it, if she had a secret on him, I don't think it was ever revealed. Like, it reveals literally everyone else's secrets that she knew about, but I cannot for the life of me figure out what the secret with Neil could have been unless I missed it. But then she just gets up because she's tired of the conversation, and she goes to weirdly sit next to Grumpy Guy. And now we're back to the present, and Neil pretends like he remembers nothing, even though he at least remembers something, I guess. Everyone except Grumpy Guy suddenly knocks on their door and then just lets themselves in, because they suddenly found clues for each of them in their rooms, and asked Neil if he got one too, which he didn't think he had. And then the girlfriend looks over and, oh look, there's the clue. And Jesus Christ. Also, only the original party are the ones that got clues. So Marty and the girlfriend didn't get any, because this whole elaborate thing is set up only for the original party. Also, the clues are tiny little adorable baby chick doll things, which is funny because I thought they were ducks at first because of their coloring, but yeah, chicks makes more sense because Easter. But the clues lead them to the kitchen, so they head out of his room and start going down the stairs, and as Neil is the last one down the stairs, he comes across the Grumpy Guy who just found his clue and is asking, hey, did anyone else get any clues? Because he's late to the clue party, apparently. So Neil just fills him in, and they all meet each other in the kitchen. They start looking through the kitchen, and they're doing it in literally the laziest way possible, of like they're barely even trying to look. in the context of what they're doing, and it's kind of funny. But then eventually Marty finds like the tiniest little pot, like cooking pot, filled with more of the chicks, and it comes with another note. Sorry, I had to look at my notes again. But along with the note, we see that there are 5 chicks, 1 for each of these still aliving members of the original group. And each of the chicks have each of their names with a little tiny note, which doesn't make sense for how tiny the chicks are. They try to read the notes, but again, the audio was not great, so I basically didn't hear 90% of what the notes said, except for the tail end of one of them, which summarized was basically, are chicks better in the pan or in the fire? Which, okay. What does that mean? We don't know, Neil. That's what we're trying to find out, dumbass. Grumpy tries to deduce what the riddle could mean, and he thinks some of the lingo has something to do with parasites? Like, in livestock, I think? But then eventually the girlfriend realizes it actually has something to do with the fireplace, so they go to the other room that has the fireplace. When they get to the fireplace, they see, not in an individual string, but several different strung up chicks that lead to another note that is basically, what does it say? Something about how Easter is a holiday about sin, which, with a small amount of context I have of religion from growing up with my in my grandparents' churches, kind of makes sense, I guess. But then, literally, Jane, the brunette lady, who I also don't like, somehow makes the connection that the riddle has something to do with the Garden of Eden. I literally had to ask my mom, who grew up more with religion than I did, and be like, what the hell is the connection between Easter and the Garden of Eden? And she's like, I don't know. That makes no sense to me. But they go outside to the garden where they had originally started their talking at the beginning. Not the beginning of the movie. Beginning of this setup party, I guess. The setup Easter egg hunt. And they, once again, as lazily as before, look around the grounds where no one's even looking under stuff or anything. They're just kind of lazily turning their heads around to look at the surrounding area. And they eventually, Neil eventually finds the jankiest cardboard box that says fragile on every side and has a red little bow on it. It was also at this point in the movie where we were so far in that I was just craving for someone to die already. We've only had one death. I'm getting antsy as a horror lover. But Neil finds the box, they all gather around and look at it, and for some reason the original members look at it like it's something they've seen before, which, again, in the context of the movie, from everything I have seen in the movie, doesn't make sense because they haven't seen a box like this before. So I don't know. It was very strange. And even someone are like, oh god, what is this? It's like, we don't know. Why are you acting like it's the scariest thing when it's a janky cardboard box? Also, because of the inaudibility of the movie, Amy somehow convinces them to open the box, but I could not tell what she said to convince them. And then they're still reluctant to do it initially. So Marty literally looks at them and is like, why are you staring at the box like it's a bomb? Which is a very good question, because they have literally no indication it would be a box like that. And based off of more stuff that happens in this movie, I don't know why they were looking at the box like it was a bomb. But as Neil finally opens it, his girlfriend jokes that there's probably some chocolate in it, which is very wishful thinking. But it turns out, nope, it's a voice recorder, which, okay. Once again, there's more debate on whether they should listen to it or not, and yet again, it was at this point in the film that if you're seeing all this stuff, you're already creeped out on everything that's happening. You already know one person is dead that possibly might be at your hands. and someone is setting up a really weird elaborate Easter egg hunt for you. No one's trying to actively hurt you right now. Set everything down and leave? There's literally nothing keeping them there at this active point in the movie. Amy just presses play while it's in Neil's hands because she just wants to get it over with. I don't know why. And it turns out the voice on the recording is Heather! Shocker! And it basically is her saying, "Who did that? You know what?" And she will see them at dinner at 8. And some of the group panic, some of them stay remarkably calm until Tom basically just convinces them, you know what, it's 6 o'clock now, we have a couple of hours, I want to know who the fuck is setting this up, so we might as well join whoever is setting this up for dinner at 8. They basically all leave to get ready for dinner, and we eventually see Mr. Ulrich go to Amy's room after she's all dressed and tries to see how she's doing, and they have a conversation I don't care about, so I'm not even going to bother trying to remember what the summary of the conversation is, before Marty walks in and is just letting them know that there is a new clue at the dinner table. So they just leave the room to go see what the clue is. When we get to the dining room table, while I don't generally like the cinematography of this movie, there are certain points in it where I do actually kind of like it, and this one I swear to God seems like a Renaissance painting. It's kind of funny. We get a closer look at the table, and I guess whoever said it really knows good table etiquette because of just the way everything's set up and the fact that there are actually place cards. So, good on you. Then again, it is Easter, and I know my grandma tried to make sure we had good table etiquette, especially on holidays. We also see the new box, and I swear to God, it's the exact same janky box. Because it looks the exact same, has Fragile written all over it, same bow, and same goddamn recorder in it. Neil's girlfriend gets a little grumpy because it looks like there's nothing set up for her and Marty, and they realize that this whole thing seems to be set up only for the original members of the party and they technically probably weren't supposed to bring plus ones. But her and Marty sit down to the table anyway because there's extra chairs. We also find out that there are 5 Easter eggs, and that in the box, I can't remember if it was a separate note or on the voice recorder or whatever, but we basically see or hear or whatever, there are 5 Easter eggs with 5 notes that are labeled for each of them. But based off of how people read them, it looks like it's not placed in front of them. It's more of like they're labeled for them, but anyone can read them. But that way they know who it's intended for? They also listen to the recording, and it's basically just a lot of cryptic stuff of read the notes and find out what's happening, I guess. Does this have anything to do with Heather's disappearance? Gee, I don't know. One of the many notes read is basically just, "One of you killed me that night, time to find out who." And this is when the girlfriend finally realizes that Heather is dead. And she kind of freaks out about it, but not really. And Tom tries to say it was an accident. Jane finds another note that was intended for a grumpy guy whose name is Carl, and I'm still not going to call him by that except for this note, that says, "Carl, you are supposed to be a doctor. Why did you let Heather die?" And then he just kind of babbles on about how he didn't mean to let her die, and we get another flashback! Yay! This entire sequence of flashbacks actually kind of made me irrationally angry, because it will start with one person summarizing something in the flashback that they remember. And then the next person who was relevant in said flashback will go, "Oh wait, no, it didn't happen that way, it happened this way." And then the next person, and then the next person. So basically you don't find out what actually happened until everyone's done talking, and it is the most obnoxious thing to fucking watch over and over again in the span of this entire scene. So to help say what is revealed in this scene. I am just going to read a tiny bit of my notes to say what concretely was revealed in each thing, I guess. Basically, Mr. Grumpy's flashback just reveals that he had cheated on Amy with Heather, and that she was holding that against him, and literally just blackmails him, saying, if you say you didn't like it, and it was a mistake again, I will tell her everything. You're mine. Which, very manipulative, and I can see why no one liked her. Like, I feel like cheating's not great. But you shouldn't blackmail someone with it. That just seems shitty. Also, apparently Amy had found out about this, and that's actually part of why they had broken up after Heather's death. In Jane's flashback, I honestly could not tell 98% of what was being said because since they were all intoxicated, Jane seemed like she was slurring half the time, and Amy in the flashback, they had her eating chips the entire time she's talking, so even if her audio mixing wasn't bad, her eating mixed with her accent just makes it so impossible to know what the fuck she's saying. But the most I could gather from this scene is that Jane was jealous because Heather was flirting with Neil, who Jane either had a crush on or was dating at the time, and that's part of why she feels Heather is a slut, because I don't know, I don't care. We also basically just find out that the secret that Heather had on Jane is that at the time Jane was a virgin and she didn't want anyone to know. Okay. Yet another segment of them just debating everything happening, which is getting really boring to watch when not much is revealed during the debate portions. And we only see that apparently not everyone's memory is as accurate as they think it is, which of course it's not. They were all fucking shit-faced. One of the new notes says, "It's been 6 months since we've been in touch. Did you all like the messages I sent?" And that just simply reveals that apparently everyone was getting very cryptic texts, like the person was going to reveal what they had all done that night when it comes to possibly killing Heather, and that the texts only stopped when Zara had apparently died. But basically this entire dining room table section of the movie is just establishing that even before Heather died, no one trusted her and that she was actually kind of a piece of shit. Which is fair. The girlfriend gets upset about finding out that Heather is dead and walks out of the room. Neil follows her to make her feel better, which of course isn't gonna work. Grumpy Guy reads another note that says, "It's all fun and games until someone gets hurt. First it was me, then Zara. Who do you think will be next?" And this, of course, freaks out Amy and tells Marty to grab his shit and leave so he'll be safe. She walks her brother to the stairs upstairs to make sure he goes and grabs his stuff. After he's out of frame, she looks over just slightly beyond the frame and sees that there's a door with blood on it, which I'm not sure where the blood came from. Now that I think about it, actually. And she walks in to find a spooky, scary setup, which, again, I will insert somewhere here, I guess. And what does she find? The same goddamn janky box again! This box is becoming the bane of my existence! But we see her walk out of the room with the box in her hands, and then we just cut back to Marty, who is packing his stuff. But the way he's packing his stuff, he grabs his, I think it's like a duffel bag or something, and just starts patting and acting like he's moving around or shoving in more contents in his bag, which he's not doing. But he ends up hearing the window making noise, so he gets up, closes the window, goes back to his bag, and then we see Easter Bunny in the doorframe. Marty looks over, and it cuts to black, and we assume he dies. We now cut back to Neil and his girlfriend in their room again, and the way this scene is filmed initially is really odd to me, because it's basically Neil, center frame, looking back and forth at his girlfriend as she's walking in and out of frame from both sides, because she's like, walks this way out of frame, acts like she's holding something new, walks this way out of frame, acts like she's holding something new, doubles back, and just keeps going, acting like she's grabbing different things to put away when I can tell she's just holding the same thing every time. But they argue back and forth. He does the plead to not lose her, and she, for now, is just like, I don't care right now. I just want to go home. We can talk more about this when you come home. And so she packs her shit, says she's going to say goodbye to the others, and then leaves the room. We then see him, after she leaves the room, take off his outer shirt for some reason, which is probably to make his kill easier, which makes no sense to me. And I don't know why, but he starts staring out his door that, like, leads outside to the balcony? Like, he sees something, which logically doesn't make sense, because it doesn't show anything over there. But he leaves the room, goes onto the balcony thing, which actually looks like a really weird, bizarro fire escape type of thing, which makes me even more confused what this building is. And he goes down the stairs. As he's out of frame, we see Easter Bunny walk into his room. As we see him walk down the stairs, we see a separate Easter Bunny, which implies that there's two of them, not one, because logically they would not have been able to travel that far in that quick of a time at the bottom of the stairs out of his view. And he starts walking around looking like I do when I'm playing a video game and I'm looking for loot in an area. So I basically, because of this scene, realized this is not only I Know What You Do Last Summer but bad, it's also Scream but bad, because of the two killer scenario. As he's looking around on the specific deck that he's on, he ends up hearing someone walking up the stairs that he just came down from, and it's I'm assuming it's the second Easter Bunny because it's going up the stairs, and so he starts looking up, trying to see who it is on the above deck from him. And it's kind of funny what happens next. Literally the instant he looks up, we get the only inventive death of the movie, which they even managed to ruin. The instant he looks up, you see Easter Bunny looking down at him, and he starts yelling at it to figure out who it is. And while he's looking up, the Easter Bunny holds out a bowl, like a metal bowl, and starts pouring melted chocolate on his face. Like, hot, melted chocolate on his face. Which, again, that's really cool. That's really inventive for an Easter horror movie. And then they ruin it by having Second Bunny just stabbing him in the gut repeatedly. Right after. Because I guess hot chocolate wasn't enough. I also looked closer at his body when he falls after getting stabbed, and they just splattered fake blood all over him. No cuts in his shirt where the knife would have gone in, like, at all. They weren't even bothered to take a pair of scissors and cut the shirt slightly. They then drag him off frame, and we go back to the rest of the group, who is in one of the living rooms or something, with Amy holding the janky box and finding yet another voice recording. The girlfriend comes downstairs, tries to say goodbye, and basically is saying how she's not going to tell anyone what happened, because obviously she doesn't want to get murdered by one of the possible killers. And even though she wanted nothing to do with this, she sees they have a new recorder, asks them if they've listened to it yet, and when they say no, she presses play for them and just stands there listening to it with them. If you don't want to be involved, don't be involved! And then it's literally just the recording of Heather acting annoyed that the game she made is not working in her favor, because still nobody is admitted to being the one who killed her. So she says she's going to count to 10, and if no one tells the truth, bad things are gonna happen. They all start panicking, and when I saw them panicking, the only thing I could think of is, this isn't like a recording playing over speakers that they can't control. This is literally an audio recording in their hand. They can pause at any time and leave before anything bad happens to them. So, kinda on them. It counts down to 10, nothing happens, and they are all relieved. And then Easter Bunny randomly walks out and shoots girlfriend in the head, and she falls down dead. And then it literally zooms in at her, on her head as everyone's running away. And again, fake blood, nothing else. You can't even tell that she had been shot because it's literally just fake blood on the side of her face. So she could have just been splattered with something and passed out for all we know, with no context. As everyone runs away, Easter Bunny, now decided to get rid of the gun that he had and pulls out a hammer and is hitting the table while he's chasing after them. Darkness has fallen on the house and everyone is hiding in different parts of the room. We see Jane hiding very poorly behind a medium-sized chair that how she is sitting behind it is, or sorry, not even behind it, next to it. She's not even hiding and she cries and then she gets up and walks out of frame. And then we go to Amy and Tom, who are hiding together, and they're trying really hard to be quiet, but because of the way the doors in this house are made, because it's like wooden floors everywhere, everything they do makes noise. So Easter Bunny's a dumbass for not being able to find them. It's only now that they realize the mask is the same one from a year ago, and this is also when Tom reveals his secret Heather was holding on him, that he's gay. That's it. His only secret is that he's gay, and at the time had a crush on Neil that he didn't want anyone to know about, and that while they were there this weekend, he was going to tell everyone before this whole fiasco happened. Because that's the right time to mention something like that. And now we pan to Grumpy Ulrich. And he finds Neil's chocolatey body in his room, because I guess Easter Bunny just dragged him back to his own room. It's nice. Nice of you to just drag Neil back to his own room, I guess. And he tries to call the cops with his cell phone, which doesn't work for reasons unknown. We cryptically see the Easter Bunny walking up the stairs inside the house, stare down a hall for what feels like 5 minutes before walking into the room, where Grumpy is now hiding, and the bunny, like everyone else in this movie, does not even the bare minimum when it comes to searching, and just walks right back out. This movie sucks. This doesn't... No, I'm changing my hat. It's my fuck off hat. Because this movie is terrible. We see more flashbacks, but it really doesn't reveal anything, so I don't care to even remember what happens in the flashbacks. We see Jane being chased outside by the Easter Bunny, and we find out she can't run for shit and trips over literally nothing. It chases her to the forest. It gets edited really weird because it makes it seem like he lost her and she's hiding behind a tree. And then I'm assuming we get a point of view editing thing from her, where either first Easter Bunny or second, I'm not sure which, finds her and just hits her forehead with the back of a bat. Okay. Back to Tom and Amy, who find the murder planning room, and I don't care. They start debating more about the plot, and I find it really fucking hilarious because I can tell they genuinely filmed at night, which probably became an issue in a building they decided to not keep the lights on for some fucking reason. And so, in the murder planning room with them, right next to Tom, in full frame, is a, video recording lamp. It's for scenes and shit, behind the scenes stuff that you're not supposed to be seeing. But they're using More grumpy guy roaming the halls in a very unnaturally lit hall now, probably because they were just using those lamps like they're everyday lamps now. And he gets caught by the Easter Bunny, hit over the head, and then while he's hit over the head on the ground, he starts thinking that the Easter Bunny is Heather, which... okay... And now we get a very strange, out of context, what I now know is a flashback, but at the time I had no clue what was happening, of a random house during the day in town, and a random white guy walking out of his house going, "What are you doing here?" And then cut back to present day. No context yet. Tom and Amy plan an escape from the house. He grabs the shortest amount of rope, thinking that will help him. They hear Grumpy Guy yelling for help, and it pans to the dining room where the fucking Easter Bunny apparently dragged all the dead bodies into to the table, with Grumpy Guy tied up at the head of the table. This guy is just pure artiste. The bunny plays a new recording for him, which just threatens to make him tell the truth, and he starts hitting the table with a hammer, implying if he doesn't answer, he's gonna hit his hand with it. And Ulrich freaks out, doesn't know how to respond, and just to give him some sort of answer, he says it was Zara. In reply to finding out that it's Zara, the bunny pulls out a random laptop, turns on the screen, and shows Skeet a surveillance footage video of Zara outside of a motel being killed by the Easter Bunny, and framing it like it's her unaliving. Like her own unaliving. I'm trying to be careful with words. And then precious gay Tom gets behind the Easter Bunny and tries to strangle the mask with the small bit of rope. Which of course doesn't fucking work. The fight struggle choreography is so bad, it's the laziest thing ever. They're barely doing anything while making it seem like they're doing a lot. He gets the random gun away from the bunny and also manages to take the bunny's mask off. And who is it? The Easter Bunny is Marty! Because apparently he didn't die after all, which doesn't make any sense with this reveal, which I will explain later. Marty basically reveals that after the camping trip, Amy had revealed to him what had happened, and in order to keep her safe, he was trying to kill the original members of the party because who knows who the killer could have been, and he thought killing all the possible people would just keep her safe. Also, he mentions that the way he had the audio recordings is because Heather records herself a lot before she died. So he basically just took audio bites of hers and remixed them to what he needed. Because he's doing the most. Tom threatens to kill Marty with the gun in self-defense. And then, shocker, he gets stabbed in the back by the second bunny. And who's the second bunny? It's Amy! Wearing an identical bunny mask. Are these creepy masks mass-produced or something? Because that's just... how would they both have an identical mask to the original mask? I don't know. I don't care. My camera died, and I had to wait 2 hours to let it charge. So I took all the fancy stuff off, because this movie doesn't deserve my entire effort the entire time. To finish off the stupid fucking plot, basically, Amy killed Heather because they have the same dad, and her dad... Heather's dad cheated on his wife with Amy's mom. And so because Amy's mom had cancer, she went to their dad to ask for money for her cancer treatments, which he was annoyed about. However, when she explained more of her motives of literally not wanting a relationship, just wanting to be funded for her mom. He agrees as long as she keeps it secret. But apparently Heather heard the whole time, and she just assumes that Amy is blackmailing her dad just to have money, and basically on the camping trip told her that she will make sure her dad never pays her family a cent. So in order to make sure her mom gets her cancer treatments, which I guess didn't work anyway since her mom is dead by our current timeline, she kills Heather. To summarize everything revealed at the end of this movie, because it is the most convoluted, stupid plot twists upon plot twists, I made a visual aid. Basically, it starts here. Amy kills Heather, then tells her brother, very vaguely, that Heather died, just not telling him she was the one that killed her. And then Marty, in response, cryptically texts everyone to try and suss out who the murderer is. However, because of the fact that Amy didn't know that Marty was doing that, she kills Zara because she thinks Zara is the one doing it. And then somehow Marty finds the security footage. It is unclear how he gets it. But then because he sees the security footage, he realizes the murderer is still alive and out there, so he plans the elaborate Easter hunt, which he and Amy kill Neil together, not knowing that they were both in on it, I guess? I don't know how that worked. And then the girlfriend dies by Marty, because Amy was already in the room when everything was happening, so she couldn't have had time to do that. And then Jane, I'm assuming killed by Marty, but the way that it's edited, and the fact that Amy is with Tom for the rest, like, till the very end, I'm assuming it's Marty. This is stupid. And then, during the shuffle with Grumpy Guy, Marty is unmasked by Tom, gets revealed the whole plot until Amy kills Tom, in which case Amy is unmasked by herself, and then they explain the rest of what I just explained. And then the very end of the movie is them joining forces to kill Grumpy Guy. Basically, the end of the movie is Amy telling her brother how much she loves him, and they're going to frame Grumpy Guy for everything that had happened up till this point. But Grumpy Ulrich gets untied by himself and he runs out of the house. And like professional serial killers that have done things for years, the brother and sister look at each other like, oh god damn it, he got away. And then they professionally put their masks back on and creepily hunt him outside. Which, again, only good, like, shot thing, briefly. Grumpy Guy and Marty fight. During the scuffle, Grumps knocks out Amy, and then while Amy is knocked out, he kills Marty. There's a artistic frame for a second before it cuts, and we're back in the dining room where he apparently dragged her and Marty back to the dining room, like with all the rest of the dead bodies at the table. And she wakes up, realizes it's just him and her now. She pleads for her life, and he puts on the mask. End roll credits. Ugh. The only things I could find about this movie is that it's apparently also called Easter Killing, which honestly kind of makes a little bit more sense than Easter Bunny Massacre, because honestly, the bunny didn't matter to the plot at all. The mask never had any relevance other than it was something that Amy brought to the original party, which was never explained completely why she did that in the first place, or how there's multiple of this mask somehow. Also, how did they not know they were both the bunny? Literally right before, either after Neil dies or right before Neil dies, I already can't remember and I don't care. When Marty is in the room packing, he sees the bunny in the doorway. And then we don't see him until the end of the movie. But then, at the end of the movie, when Amy kills Tom, Marty's acting like this is the first time he's seeing the second bunny. Did they just forget they shot that scene in the first place? In conclusion, I suppose, this movie sucks. I absolutely hate it. I feel like it released a curse upon my state, considering, sure, we were having wonky weather, but literally, the instant I finished watching this movie, I started heading outside to smoke. Hard rain, hard hail, average rain, super hard snow for absolutely no reason, which eventually went away. And ever since then, we were having really bad rain constantly, making it hard to do anything. Till today. Precious Easter Day! Truly Jesus has risen because the weather finally went back to semi-normal. I'm sorry, Mother Nature, for releasing